Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast. I am Jeremy, your host, and I'm here today with my co-host Reno as we are once again in the same spot together doing our thing.
In person, same clothes, different day.
Well, same clothes, additional podcast.
Additional podcast.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Today we're going to cover sleep, which I, have really found fascinating over probably the last 5 to 8 years of my career, right? Going into looking at sleep and how it affects the body and even looking at it, from an aging process of like, okay, how do we live a healthier, longer, life, right? And sleep is probably the one thing that I would say most people overlook. And I don't know if it's a stigma, that comes with like sleeping in or the vice versa, getting up early.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of like, oh, I'm a grinder. Look what time I get up early, all that stuff. Right. And unfortunately, I didn't go to bed early, right? It was just like I was burning the candle at both ends, and I would end up, sleeping 16, 18 hours on weekends that I didn't have anything to do, like early and I remember this in my college, quote, do I say career? College is not
college.
A career?
Some people might think
some people make it a career. Early in my college years, and I would remember just crashing and being out, right? Or even early on when Katie and I got together, she used to give me a really hard time. Like we would go on vacations or weekend trips and I would be out of it. Like I would sleep. And it was just, I was burning the candle at both ends, right? Getting, 3-4 hours of sleep, on most nights and trying to, grind it out for lack of better terms. And it was almost like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Right. I can do more than you on less sleep.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's like posed that way on social media.
Yeah.
From even all the way down to people with no followers to big followers, that it is this badge of honor.
Yes.
And then being the military, we see it.
We see it every day. Right. And listen, I am not against getting up early and getting things done, because I think, especially the listeners of this, if we just go by, hey, data on our average age of listener, average age of follower on me on social media, like I get it. We are, the moms, the dads, the busy people, so yes, getting up early and getting our workouts done and getting some personal time, out of the way, like that is the best time, 100%. Right. But the takeaway that I want you guys to understand today, that when I coach individuals and along their wellness journey, and I see that, hey, nutrition's good, exercise is good, and they're not seeing results, most of the time it is secondary to the lack of sleep.
I can speak for it firsthand. Before even coming on H2F, sleep was my sleep and water were my number one issues.
I mean, it's a lot of people's kryptonite, and I get it. Before we get into like how much and the benefits and the stages and all the quote nerdy stuff, I get it. I'm in a phase now, right? And my wife gives me a hard time, when I go on military orders. She's like, "Going on vacation again?" And I'm like, it's not vacation, right? Like I've got work to do. I still work. I still answer my messages of my clients. I still do all this stuff. But what she's getting at is like, hey, we got a newborn, or she's already turned 1. So I guess that's not newborn, right?
Probably still. I would consider it still newborn stages. Yeah.
But the last year's been tough. She doesn't sleep. She gets up a couple times a night, right? We still got 2 other kids, and it makes a big difference. So with that being said, understand, guys and gals, we all have phases of life, right? So just like we talk about on a wellness journey, I am going to teach you what is optimal for the body, what is the optimal behaviors, what is the sleep hygiene that we need to be doing. But I get it. You may be in a phase of life that you can't get the sleep that you can get, and that's okay. But staying up on your phone is a choice. That's not a phase.
Yep.
Right. And I want people to understand that. So if you're controlling what you can control, you're doing everything in your capacity. And I understand there's just times in life that you're not going to be able to get the optimal levels of sleep.
One thing that really helped me is, I know I make an obvious choice of being on my phone at night, but if I just go get in bed, I'm less likely to stay on my phone for 45 minutes because I start getting tired, and I just put it down after 10 minutes.
Yeah. And that, we go into, it's like, your environment matters, so much in that. But before we get into, environment and sleep hygienes and the habits that you guys should be doing, let's talk about, how much sleep we need. What are the stages? What are the benefits in that aspect? Okay. So we've heard it all the time. We talked a little bit about this on the recent podcast with, water. There's a generic recommendation. We've heard that, hey, you need 8 hours of sleep, right? It's not that it's wrong, but it is just that generic recommendation. But what we look at in the data is most adults need 7 to 9 hours, right? Which, once again, I'm sure that's where the 8 came from, right? But we want to shoot for 7 to 9 hours of sleep day in and day out. That would be optimal levels of sleep. Now, to break that down a little bit more for those before individuals freak out and they're like, Jeremy, there's no way I can get that. I will say that quality of sleep matters more than quantity of sleep. So I've got a lot of people, myself included in this phase of my life, that I'm getting, right around that 5.5 to 6.5 hours. But because I choose to do the right things when it comes to my environment of my bedroom, when it comes to the sleep hygiene, that the quality of that sleep is maybe better than someone getting 7 to 9 hours, right? So keep that in mind, that the quality matters just as much as the quantity. But, where we want it is 7 to 9 hours with the quality. That's ideal.
Yeah.
That is definitely ideal.
Mm-hmm. And I can speak to this for hours on the fact the quality of sleep. Starting the work from home job or the remote job, I was getting too much sleep. I would find myself going to bed at 9 and waking up at 8 and found myself with 11 hours of sleep. I'm on time for work, but I was lethargic throughout the day. Didn't want to work out, didn't want to do anything. It was just because my body.
Well, I would say the body was actually catching up, right?
Yeah, it could be, from 5 years.
Yeah,
sleep.
Yes. And there's a lot of that goes into sleep depth. And, unfortunately from health markers and health standpoint, you can't catch up. Short term, you can. So you can pay back some short term sleep debt. You can get ahead if you know that you're going into a weekend or a week of not getting much sleep. You can, quote unquote, bank some sleep. So there is some good data on that. But yeah, a lot of times, that lethargic that comes from sleeping too much is actually, because your body is in that depth, or sleep debt where you have to pay it back. And then you just feel sluggish because, your body's catching up on it. Right. Yeah. So, of the 7 to 9 hours, I want the listener to understand there are stages of this. Okay. And always, depending on what you're looking at, it might be called 4 stages, there might be 3, some might be called non-REM versus REM. It's broken into different things, but generally there's 4 stages of sleep. One is awake. And I always get on that one because I'm like, well, if you're awake, are you really asleep?
Right.
But this is kind of like the twilight zone, where, yes, you're awake, but you're kind of dozing off, or you're getting ready to dive into the light sleep. Okay. So that's stage 1 is actually awake. Body's prepping to get into light sleep. Stage 2 is that light sleep, right? So you are asleep here. You're just not into what we will call the deeper stages or the regenerative stages. Okay. So you're asleep. And this is where I find most people are at. Unfortunately, most people are spending so much time in this light sleep, they're not really getting the benefits of the deep sleep and the REM sleep, respectively. Okay. Stage 3 would be the deep sleep. And deep sleep is awesome for recovery when it comes to physical fitness or our body. So this is where we recover, right? So if I have a person that maybe has a burn injury or, a knee injury, shoulder injury, I want to make sure that I'm trying to get as much deep sleep in them as possible, because this is where the body physically recovers.
Right.
So when we're working out, this is what we want to get. We want to get the deep sleep so our body physically recovers from the training that we've done the day before, or in the aspect if there's an injury or we're recovering from a surgery, we really want to focus in on the deep sleep, right? Then the 4th stage would be REM sleep or rapid eye movement, right? We've all kind of seen this maybe in our pets or kids, the eyes are really going back and forth. And the rapid eye movement is also another, what I would consider deeper stage where the body recovers from the mental aspect. This is where short-term memory or even long-term memory, when we study things, if we don't get this sleep, we don't remember it, right? So it means we from lack of better terms, we are not getting more intelligent if we're reading and studying and we're not getting REM sleep, because the body is not able to process it and kind of wash it off and store that stuff into memory, right? And also, if you've missed your REM sleep, this is where you don't wash the stress off from the day before. So I say people truly waking up, still having that stress and still having anxiety, whatever that feeling is that they have. And you can almost feel a little hungover, you didn't drink. But when you don't get sleep and you don't get any REM sleep at all, you will feel almost like you're hungover.
Yeah.
Still drunk, right? Not thinking good, just not making clear decisions, not be able to make, quick decisions secondary to that, right? So those are the 2 most important stages, is that deep sleep and that REM sleep respectively inside of the total 7 to 9 hours.
if someone comes to you and like, look, hey Jeremy, I have the Whoop or I have some type of wearable and it's showing me that I'm not going past stage 2. Is there things that they can do to kind of help get past light sleep into
100%. And I love wearables. Like I had 3 wearables at one time. I wore an Oura Ring, I have my Garmin, and I have a Whoop, right? And if you guys are interested in a Whoop, we could link, a referral link that I have on there. If you have Whoop, everybody has a referral link. It gives you a free month. We'll put that in the show notes if anyone wants to try it out. But here's the thing I always say with Whoops or with anything. It's not the data that is important as the behavior changes. Right. We're not chasing numbers.
Yep.
I mean, we could say we're chasing numbers because I want to have more deep sleep. I want to have more REM sleep. But what's more important is the behaviors that you're doing to achieve those numbers.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because all wearables are going to have a standard deviation when it comes to the information that it is giving you.
Yep.
Okay. But some of the biggest thing, like you ask, okay, Jeremy, what can I do to improve deep sleep? What can I do to improve the REM sleep? It really starts with like looking at your schedule. Right? Looking at your environment that you are sleeping in. And I like to make a joke, all the time. It's not really a joke. It's kind of true. The bedroom should be for 2 things. You're laughing.
I already know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sleeping and the other.
Yeah. The
other adult pastime. Right.
Yeah.
So those should be the only 2 things that are occurring in the bedroom. I mean, ideal. Like when you go to bed, that trains the body that, okay, there's going to be 2 things that happen in this space, right? I'm not a big fan of a TV.
I don't have a TV, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, Jeremy, I have to have noise on when I go to bed. Cool, make it a white noise. Don't make it a TV. Because what happens with that TV is, our body has these light sensors. So when it senses light, it puts you into light sleep. Because that's the way our body is wired, right? If you think back to the quote, caveman era, right? We went to bed when it got dark and we got up when it was daylight. Well, the reason we get up when it's daylight is the body senses light and it puts you in light sleep. So you could be sleeping all night long, be like, I got 8 hours of sleep, but all of it was light sleep because the TV was on and the body kept knocking you out of REM sleep and deep sleep because you can't wake up in those stages. It's very hard to wake up, right? So that's where we run into a little bit of issues. So first, look at your environment. Your room should be dark, 100% dark. Invest in some blackout curtains, put some duct tape over the alarm clock, like whatever that you need to do. Like we have our water pump, our water heater is inside of our closet, right? So if we leave our closet door open, you can see those lights.
Yep.
So we put tape over there, right? We have a fire alarm, or I don't know if it's a fire alarm. I don't know if it's
the smoke detector.
Yeah.
We put a light over or a tape over the smoke detector.
Well, I'll make Katie do it because I can't reach it. So, but she can just stand there and put the tape over it. So yeah, we put the light over there. So your room, like when you go into it, and maybe before your eyes adjust a little bit, like you shouldn't be able to see anything.
Yeah.
And once the eyes adjust, you can see a little bit of like, maybe just like around, but like when you first go in your room and close the door and all the lights are off, like it should be dark. You shouldn't be able to put your hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
That's how dark we want it.
I have to like follow the wall, stub my toe,
yeah,
and then you can get to bed.
Then you go to bed, right? Yeah. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
So that's how dark we would want those rooms, okay? And then I always say a cool environment because the body does sleep better in a little bit cooler environment, somewhere around that 66 to 68 degrees, because the body has to drop its body temperature about 1 degree to get into deep sleep. And that's where maybe if you've camped before or you've tried to sleep when it's hot, it's very difficult to get into a good sleep while it's hot. So a cool, dark room as an environment is where I would start people at. Right. You also want to look at the same routine. Our circadian rhythm is based on schedules. So trying to go to bed around the same time and getting up around the same time is optimal. Once again, I understand it's difficult for people to do. But when I say around the same time, don't think that like that has to be a robot. Okay. 8:15 bedtime.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that,
but
it has to be like the same routine. As long as you're getting to bed around the same 60 minutes, time frame, give or take, and getting up around the same time, the body is just better at, okay, it's sleep. It's time to fall asleep, right? Same thing we do for our kids. Like if you've ever sleep trained a kid, same routine. So then we put them down, like all of us are built that way, right? We are just human beings that love schedules. Right.
And you notice when you get into that schedule, because my body will now, like, I don't even need the alarm. I'll wake up about 15 minutes or so before my alarm, grab my phone thinking that it's 4 a.m. But
100%. When you are caught up on sleep and you're in that rhythm, you should just fall asleep easily. right? Fall asleep easy and then wake up really before alarm, which is optimal, right? So having that, schedule, same wake up time, same sleep time, cool, dark environment. Those are the two, biggest things that we can do. Okay. Now the other one, which is tough, right, is no screen time, 90 minutes to 2 hours before bed.
Yikes.
And when we do an awkward pause, why people are like, that's tough.
90 minutes is long too.
It is. But if you can train yourself to, put that phone down, not check that email, whatever the case is, and not have that blue light in your face, it'll make a big difference. Okay. And I get it. And you say, well, it's tough. Like, we are addicted, guys. We're addicted to the likes or the comments or the emails or whatever. Like, but if you can get on a schedule where you're putting that away, right. And once again, this goes to your routine. I'm guilty of this, and I'm have to reset every now and again. What I've started doing is plugging it up before plugging the phone up in charge, putting it down before we put the baby to bed. Because then when we put the baby to bed, it's kind of like, okay, now the routine is take a shower, get everything done for the next day, right? Start winding down. So that's been something that's really, once again, that I've fine-tuned, in our new house, and it's working really well. Okay. So no screen time, same routine, cool, dark room. Those are some of the biggest things that we can do to optimize that sleep.
And this has helped me. I've done it for a few years now, but anyone listening, your phone has those settings that you can actually turn on. So it's like an hour before bedtime, it'll say, hey, it's an hour before bedtime, start winding down. It turns off all your notifications. You stop getting things. But of course, I still look at the phone. But like what you said, I need to start putting my phone in maybe a different room or something.
Yep. And once again, going back to what we talked about, like building habits, right? Okay. Like when you take a shower, when, for me, it's when we start putting the baby down. Like that routine is a trigger to me. Okay, put your phone up, right? Put your phone up. And, taking something that's already in place. So maybe you got something that you do, whether it's clean up after dinner or whatever the case is, approximately that hour and a half to hour, 2 hours before bed. Okay, cool. Put the phone up, right? Some other things that we probably should look at that I want to make sure that we cover, is, caffeine. So yes, consuming caffeine late in the day. And everyone has a different half-life when it comes to caffeine. So I don't like to give absolutes and say no caffeine after noon. Well, everybody's different. Everybody's going to bed at different times, right? So if you're not going to bed till 1 o'clock at night, you might be able to do a 4 o'clock pre-workout or a 4 o'clock coffee and have no issues going to sleep, right? You may have a fast metabolism when it comes to breaking down and processing caffeine. So maybe you could do a 4 o'clock and still fall asleep at 9. Yep. Like everybody's different, but general rule of thumb, try to not have caffeine if you're going to bed around the 8, 9 o'clock time frame. Try not to have caffeine after lunch. Just a general rule of thumb. No alcohol late in the evening. And I always love this one, right? So, and I'll give everybody the green light and you can have fun with this. Be like, I'd listen to Jeremy's podcast and he said to day drink, right? So I've heard people say that from my briefs. Alcohol is a poison. So when we drink alcohol, the body has to burn it off. It wants to get rid of it, right? If you drink late, it will affect your sleep. Okay. And I've seen this with mine. I've seen it with others. So what I encourage, if you're going to have a drink in the evening, you like to have a glass of wine, you like to have beer with dinner, all that, like it's like a nightcap, have it ahead of time. Right. So, hey, if you're fixing dinner for the family, you want to drink a glass of wine before dinner, drink the wine before dinner instead of having it with or after as a nightcap. Drink it earlier in the day. Yeah. Earlier in the day doesn't mean day drinking, folks. Yeah. Okay.
Don't go to work with
Well, Jeremy said for optimize my sleep, I need to drink at noon. No. I said no caffeine after noon. You got to mixed up. Yeah. But it's true. Like, and I've done this. I've taken this to vacations. There's been times that like I'll wake up and I'm like, all right, have a mimosa. I'll drink early in the day, right? Get a nice little buzz off and then stop drinking. Yep. And I've done that for multiple reasons. We got a newborn, right? Mm-hmm. In the vacations this past year. So knowing that she's not going to sleep good or she's going to be up at night, I do not want to be drinking, right? Or drunk. So, and I still get optimal sleep. So there's ways that you can, if you are a drinker, you can work that in and not affect your sleep. But having drinks late at night will impact your sleep. Once again, you may still get the 7 to 9 hours, but you're getting light sleep and not the deep sleep in the REM. Okay.
Does that fall in the same line of like eating late and taking vitamins late? Like, is there like a weird digestion thing going on to keep you up?
For different people, but I have not found like a trend. Everyone's different. Depends on the food, depends on the volume of food, depends on the type of food, right? Yeah, if you eat something that's really like a big meal that's hard to digest, you're probably not going to sleep well because the body's having to break that down. Plus, you're probably going to wake up bloated with a little bit of gas and that type of stuff. Yeah. But on the flip side, I've saw people, do something like a cup of rice with a little bit of protein, and it helps them sleep good, right? Because, a little bit of carbohydrate can increase, serotonin levels, which can help us, produce melatonin, right? Which makes us sleep good. So there's some, it's different there. I haven't found a trend where I would tell everybody like, hey, don't eat after a certain time. It's going to affect your sleep. But that goes back to what we talked about earlier. I think that's a great reason why you should have a wearable that tracks your sleep. And you can try this different stuff based on your lifestyle to see what works well for you.
Is there, and you mentioned, so higher serotonin helps create higher melatonin. Is there a kind of correlation there? Not to give people a green light to smash carbs before bed, but
yeah, I mean, most of the time, like the things we talked about, like no screen time, right? Because that's going to suppress, serotonin levels, from that aspect. You could take some melatonin before bed to help increase serotonin, that type of stuff, but once again, I've found that to be different.
Okay.
And did I shoot that backwards? I said eating carbs increases serotonin, not produce. Yeah. Increases
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, did I get my wording right?
No. Yeah, you're good. You're good. And I just want to jump back to light, and then we can jump back to the next thing. But I think you were the one that mentioned this, or someone through a HF program is like, someone did a study, and it was like a pin dot of red light is enough to pull you out of a stage of sleep.
Yeah. So going back to like the light receptors, right?
Yep.
So the study they looked at, they took, it was sleep studies on people, and they were doing different lights, and it was a pin light they put on the back of their leg, right? And because of that light, and the body senses that there's a light, it showed them going out of their deep sleep back to light sleep, because the body's just saying, okay, there's light. I need to get ready to get up. That's how we're wired, right? And it's so important to have that cool dark room. When I travel, I do the same thing. I take the extra, towels or washcloths. I throw them over top of like microwave, either lights.
Stuff it under the door.
Stuff at the door, hallway, make the room pitch black, turn the AC down. Because once again, it's, you're traveling, you don't have to worry about the power bill, right?
Yeah.
So those are all ways to when you travel to make that cool dark room. Okay. And then the last, thing I would probably add as education with this is you can look at some supplementation. I'm a big fan of magnesium, 300 to 400 milligrams at night, and a couple of different reasons. The data will show or suggest that most Americans are low in magnesium anyway. So we should be taking magnesium kind of as a foundation supplement. And therefore, for me, it's an easy recommendation when we come to optimize sleep. So 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium. I like to see a mixture of magnesium. So just not one particular type of magnesium. I like to see a mixture of it. I use, of course, First Form's magnesium. We make a magnesium powder. You can mix it up. I've even accidentally dry shotted it before, thinking it was, a pre-workout in the morning. But it mixes really well with water. So that's where I would start with most people. And then you can look at like, a little bit of melatonin. We make some products that help decrease cortisol levels along with deep sleep. So generally I recommend Core 21 with magnesium. If I see someone's stress levels are high, if they're just saying they're stressed out, I will do Core 21, combined it with, magnesium. It helps Core 21's main ingredients is going to help lower cortisol levels. Or I look at our product called Night Tea, which stands for nighttime. It has a little bit of melatonin in it with magnesium already in it. And that can help with sleep. So those are kind of my sleep aids I would recommend, starting with magnesium, then moving more towards the specific supplements.
Cool. And I just want to throw in any questions. You can email jeremymullinspodcast at gmail. I'll be looking at them every day and shoot them over to him for answers, and we can put that out on the next podcast, or even have a dedicated podcast to answering people's questions.
100%. And if you have a question on, once again, you're looking at it, well, Jeremy, hey, I've tried, Core 21 before, but I never added magnesium to it. If I make a recommendation on anything, like today, mentioning the Whoop, mentioning the Garmin, mentioning these supplements, feel free to ask, right? Come and ask. That way we can make sure that we are getting the specific supplement or the specific wearable that may work best for your lifestyle, right? Just because I like, to take, magnesium or take Night Tea, doesn't mean that would be the best option for you to start out with, right? Maybe it's just magnesium. Maybe it is Core 21 magnesium, right? Maybe a Whoop is not good for you because it doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a FaceTime, right? It doesn't give you the time of the day. Yeah. Great at tracking habits and tracking results. But we always want to make sure, because I truly feel this in the space of nutrition coaching and wellness coaching is there's not a one size fits all. We have to find the plan, the product, the lifestyle that works for the individual.
Yep. More change comes into someone that's going to be easily adaptable to that change.
100%. Guys, hope you enjoyed today. If you do need us, send us an email. And guys, hey, keep sharing the podcast. We had a great increase in new listeners. And I know it's from you guys that are out there sharing the podcast. So if you think someone can gather, good education and this could help change their life, shoot them the podcast over. If you do have any ideas or topics you want us to discuss, shoot them over to us also. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.
See you guys.